This is HTML lesson number 77. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you one method of making the text on your web page blink. But due to technical issues, which I will discuss later, I will revisit this lesson at a future date. So let's get started, shall we? Now, I'm going to pause briefly to say something here, okay? So hang on just a second. In a future lesson, I will discuss XML, which is similar to HTML. When I do, I will discuss elements, okay? In XML, these would be considered elements. And that's very important to remember because when I discuss XML, well, you'll now know what an element is, okay? All right. Now then. I know sometimes I cheat, but you really shouldn't. Always start with your opening and closing tags, or elements if you're dealing with XML. Always start with your opening and closing tags before you start adding a whole bunch of attributes. Okay? It's a very good practice. That way you don't forget your closing tags. Okay. Now that was stupid. Okay. We do not want these tags here. We actually want them here. Another thing to remember is that you really should add titles to your web page. We've been doing that for quite some time. We should do it in this one as well. Nothing will mess up a web page faster than if you forget your closing tags, or you forget quotation marks, or if you forget colons or semicolons or pound signs or periods when they need to be there, so on and so forth. That's something very important to remember. The little details matter. They really do. Okay. Now then, we're going to display some text on the web page. We're going to need paragraph tags. Okay. Now, we're going to place selectors in between the style tags. Okay? And the first selector we're going to place in here is going to be something called description. And I will clearly illustrate this a little bit later in the lesson. Remember to have your opening, and you can actually place your closing brace right here. And then what you do is you just put your cursor between your opening and closing brace. Now you know you got them both. And just hit your enter key like that. Now you know you got them. Isn't that nice? All right. Now I was experimenting with this earlier, so I have my facts and figures, which I will now type in. Okay? Okay, so here is our first selector. Okay, as you can see here, we got description here. The font size will be 40 point. The color will be blue. So your text will actually be blue when this shows up. Now, where do we want to place the selector? We want it to match the paragraph tag because that's where we're going to have our text. And I'm going to show you this in just a second. Okay. There you go. See that? It is always a good idea to mess around with one selector and one attribute at a time. That way you don't get lost in your code. I know it's so easy to just type everything all at once, but when you do, you start getting lost. And we don't want you lost. Okay? Now, in a little bit, I'll be talking about having multiple selectors and how messy that is and what we're going to do about it. Okay? We're going to do something about it in a later lesson, so hang on. Okay. Now, what text do we want in blue? Well, we want couch. You'll see a colon here, and you'll see these two no-break spaces. In a future lesson, we're going to replace this with something else, and I'm going to show you how to do that probably within the next 2 or 3 lessons. So bear with me. In a short time, we won't be using this anymore. Isn't that nice? Okay. Let's go on here. All of this couch and this colon here will actually be in blue. All right? Now then, let's go ahead and add our next selector. Now, what do we want? Well, I want this web page to be fancy, so I'm going to have the Bodoni MT. Do you remember why we have Bodoni MT in our web pages? There was a very specific reason. Do you remember that? Leave the reason down here in the comments below. Okay? Let's see if you remember. Okay. I will give you a hint. And yes, your selectors can have underscores. Whoops. Alright, now let me show you the next selector. We have called it the Bodoni dollar. You see the underscore right there? It's going to become very important really soon. We have the font family, which is Bodoni MT, the font size, which is 40 point, the color, which is crimson, and the text decoration, which is blink. Okay. Now then, where will this be? What we're going to do is we're going to add a span tag. We talked about this in a previous video. Okay. Let's go ahead and show you the span tag. See? There's the opening span tag. Its ID is Bodoni dollar. What does this match? It matches the selector way up here. Okay? You can see Bodoni dollar down here, Bodoni dollar down here. Okay? And we also have our closing span tag. Now what are we going to place right here? We have to place something between the opening and closing tags. What are we going to do? We're going to hold down the shift button and we're going to press the number 4. Whoops. Wrong spot. Okay. Okay. And there's our dollar sign. And the only thing that is going to be in the Bodoni font will be this $sign. That's it. Now then, let me fix up my camera here, and we're going to add our third and final selector. So we got to have a third one? Yes, we do. Because we do not want the entire text to be in the Bodoni font family. We really don't. Okay? Okay. Now what is our next selector? It's going to be called low price. Okay? Now at this point we're going to copy and paste 3 items, or 3 declarations if you want to call them that, out of the Bodoni dollar selector. Okay? Okay? And I'll go ahead and show you that. We copied the font size, the color, and the text decoration. We did not copy the font family because we do not want this as Bodoni font. Okay? Now, where are we going to place all this? Well, sorry, my tripod is being a little stubborn here. What we're going to do is we're going to add another set of span tags. Okay. Okay, let's go down here. As you can see, our next set of span tags started way up here. So you got span ID, low price, and 1050.76. Okay, can you see that? All right. So now we've got all this. Now, what are we going to do? We're going to save this. Save as. We're going to save it as blink.html. Okay. And now, guess what we're going to do next? We're going to go up here. There's a little thing called Run. You see that Run right up there? We're going to click it, and we're going to launch this in Google Chrome. Remember, there are popular web browsers out there. There's the Google Chrome. There is the Internet Explorer. There is the Firefox. There is the Opera. Okay? And we're going to launch this in Chrome. Give it a second. Now you say, well, wait a minute. Well, there's the entire display, but nothing's blinking. This was the technical issue I was talking about previously in this video. Okay, remember at the beginning of the video I was telling you there was a technical issue? Well, it's not going to blink in Google Chrome because Google Chrome will not recognize the text decoration blink. It won't recognize it. So, well, what about Internet Explorer? Will that recognize it? Well, let's find out. We're going to hit Run, launch an IE, and guess what happens? It doesn't recognize it. So, we know it's not going to work in Internet Explorer. We know it's not going to work in Google Chrome. So, what will it work in? Well, we're going to launch it in Firefox and see what happens. By gollies, it's blinking. So it does work in Firefox. Doesn't seem to work with any other browser, but it does work with Firefox. Now you say, well, how are we going to get this blinking text to work in other web browsers? Well, I'm going to show you that in a future lesson, and there's a good reason for it. And I will tell you that good reason in that future lesson. But as you can plainly see in Firefox, it does blink. So, at least in one web browser, it does work. It used to work in Internet Explorer, but it doesn't do that anymore. And I can show you the reason why in a future lesson. But anyway, there you go. There you have it. Now you know it works. Alright, I will tell you more in a future video, so I want you to stay tuned.